Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. Today's episode is being recorded on 1/20/25. This is another impromptu episode, folks. But before we get to that, I now open the circle to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas of this moment in time. So, Joanna?
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones, to let healing energies in. Let them love you and nourish you and bring you to your highest good. We ask for benevolence now to come in with no conflicting agenda so that we may have this conversation in peace. And we invite any guides, any people that have passed, loved ones, elementals, galactics, anyone out there who'd like to join and listen in, but again, with no conflicting agenda, and for malevolent or mischievous beings to be swept away so this conversation can be had in peace. And with that, and always the great blessings we send your way, we say, so be it.
And so be it. Okay, I'll start just a little bit here. So the topic we came across today was brought up actually last night, and that is the growth of channelers. And this is a topic that is more centered around myself because of we were discussing earlier material of ours, namely lifting material, and earlier GICs and things of that nature that had maybe beings and entities that I no longer trust, and really couldn't believe that I had fallen for certain things for so long. So, and I see this now, and I see this with some current ones that have now fallen into that same loop. Namely, one where beings, and I will point this out, where beings will tell you that you were this magnificent, famous hero in history. Now, we've talked about the hero complex with Penny Bradley in the past. That's where the SSP will try to get you to believe you were some heroic figure for them. But this stretches to past lives. This stretches to galactic history. This stretches to the person's actual core identity itself. And this too is mostly a trick. So now that people remember the show that we did on From the Fall to the Lifting, that was about my book, me telling you similar tales of this. This is the same. This is pretty much the same thing. In that book, it was the blonde-haired idiot, and I'm not going to use his actual name. People will know who I'm speaking of. I'll have to come up with a better nickname than this. But he basically tried to tell me that I was Hercules. And this did not make sense, even in a multiversal sense. It was more like that Hercules' energy was being tapped into in the multiverse. It's not that he was me. I know different people that were me, just like our history from Egypt. We were told we were Osiris and Hathor. Not true. During the Atlantean period, I was Torang Kal, and she was there as well. And what we were seeing was we had a reading from somebody that said we were both a guard and a priestess in Egypt, but that was a later period, not during the Atlantis period. The Osirian period was Atlantis. It was all Atlantis. So where the Eye of Sahara was Atlantis City, and Egypt was the rest. That's why you have green glass there, because Enlil dropped his bomb on Atlantis City. That's why it's blighted. That's why you have the Sahara Desert to begin with. So, with that said, the other thing was the fact that we were later, and then we had our presences on Atlantis. So, but they were nobody that we really could name in history. I won't say they're no names. It's just that they could have had it gone by a different name that we don't know about. But historically, unless you're referring to lineage, like you hear Bjorn refer to King Ragnar and all this his family lineage. This is not always applicable. And I know past lives, I said, go into the genetic memory, and sometimes past lives and ancestry can be one and the same because it can be interwoven. We said that in the line conversation. But 9 times out of 10, If you are a seer telling somebody they were someone famous, chances are 100 different ones are telling them that, or people that as well. Either you're tapping into the energy of that person that you're then thinking it is your client, or you're being tricked by a guide that does not serve you well, or is not really for your highest good or highest vibrations. Let's just put it that way. So it's one of those two categories. So also, if you have a seer telling you that you are one of these famous people, they probably should not be doing that. And this is my opinion, but this clouds what is to be said, the same to be seen by the person. It influences, and also this goes with SSP as well. Unless the person has come to you with that specific problem, it's probably not a good idea to tell them they were that. Because they will focus on this, and then the hero complex will kick in. And if they were this, you'll have some targeting that goes along with this. You do not want this. And yes, going up, getting your vibration faster. People say higher vibration, but it's faster vibration, faster and slower. You hit tripwires. If a person is ill-equipped to deal with these tripwires that are like cobwebs that also alert the different entities and the different alarm bells and AI garbage that's out there, they're ill-equipped. Their brain is going to be mush. So you must not lead the person. It doesn't matter what you are picking up on. Spirit, if spirit wants the thing known, there will be dreams usually on that end, and there will be a cue on your end to actually bring it up. You will know when it is the right timing. Just because you see something doesn't mean you say something. This is where I'm personally at with this, but also you've noticed we call this the growth of channelers. From our old material to our current material, you're going to see that pattern of growth. If you go over to the Lifting's Rumble account, you will see almost the entire archive of our episodes of the Lifting from 2017 till present. Now you'll see some numbers that have been omitted. Those were too far off the marker for me to actually include, or those are going to be redone in a slightly different way. But you'll still see some of the old material mixed in with the new episode, like you've seen with several of the ones that I did in the past year or so. But I bring this all up because this shows a timeline of events from possible trick to yield to sovereign. More sovereign, I should say. So it doesn't mean what I did in the past was any less valuable. Now, do I think sometimes you should delete things, obliterate them for good? Absolutely, but it doesn't mean you're getting rid of getting rid of things that are needed, or you're not. It's not like you're being unburdened by what has been kind of phrase. That's Isaac's favorite phrase recently. So, given the recent events, but it's not like you're erasing history. You are cleansing things of your timeline of certain things and realigning energies the way you want. But it doesn't mean you get rid of everything that came before. This doesn't apply to regular history. Of course, you don't get rid of anything there. But with this, if it's something that no longer serves and is not good in the moment, don't keep it. And I say this about photographs. I say this about objects. I say this about energies. I say this with people. Tighter circle, deeper roots. But there is a difference between showing a timeline of events and getting rid of things that are so energetically burdensome that you can't have them anymore. There is a huge difference there. And I've encountered both even today from the time we're recording this. So, Joanna, you want to?
So I think what I would like to bring up about this is the fact that there historically has been a pressure on, let's just say, channelers and different ones, that from the moment they start, that there is a perfection, almost it's a false thought process to think that just because someone has a skill set to channel, that they are channeling necessarily omnipotent type of information all the time. And I think hopefully over the last few years, especially, people in general have started to see this, where, we've advised for years, what actually are you channeling? Are you channeling something current, present moment, or are you picking up something from way even in
Way
the
back,
past?
another timeline. Yeah, all
Another
that.
timeline,
Yeah.
a different perspective, someone running an agenda, whatever it would be, that these realities actually exist for a channeler who's in the midst of it all. I don't think that the complications of understanding where am I channeling, where am I getting the information from, even as far as past, present, future timeline, different timeline. I actually don't think many years ago that was even thought of as a possibility
Not at
for
all.
channelers. Where are they getting their information? So what we're trying to say is that there really is a natural growth of gaining experience, discerning, growing, sometimes sticking your finger in the light socket kind of moment for any channeler to start in one place and to continue their growth. The one thing that we say is, in general, no shame, blame, or guilt, because again, this is something that's being learned now. This isn't something that's at any sort of perfection stage. So it's always should be of caution for a person who's even seeking a channeler to not live on their every word.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really an important statement.
Discernment.
Right. And again, I, would always say, why is the need for a channeler to bring in information to tell you something that you're not even asking a question about? That's bothersome. It's really bothersome. And again, it can become then a thought process and a distraction almost to keep you from whatever it is you were trying to grow through at that moment. Now you're off in a different pathway. There are, again, channelers will grow to be able to see there is a relationship to this, to how it's affecting this person right now. But there needs to be able to be this firm, nice tie to be able to see there is a relevance here. There is let's just even say potentially an interference from something in the past that's bleeding forward. And how do we heal that so that it no longer affects you in a negative way, let's just say. And so I think my whole perspective about it is I see no problems with people seeing the growth within the material over the years. And again, Chris was doing things well before the 2017 timeframe when we started the lifting. He was doing things before. The other thing that's always said to us, and I agree just 1,000%, is there is no way that you can perceive information coming to you in any other way but with how you react with the world at the current present moment that you're reacting with. That could be ingrained belief systems that you currently have. How are you supposed to bring this through? No different than, let's say, when ancient aliens may be looking at pictures or whatever, when they're or written verbiage by people trying to describe an event, and they're just trying to describe it in the only words and terminologies and visions that they currently have. Same way, even again, as the Spanish were coming and the Indians were trying to describe, they thought they were coming floating on clouds. They didn't understand what they were seeing. So being able to channel requires, again, a growth in your ability and your perceptions and understanding to bring through even more information and to discern these things. So I think, there seems to be a tendency sometimes for people not to have the patience with a channeler as they're growing, but there's no way around it. You are not going to have somebody who just magically from day one is going to get it all right. It really People are human beings in a human body having a human experience. And so this is the way it works. So it is about encoding, decoding, even at a channeler level, based on the knowledge that they currently have. And many times what happens is that even with channelers, a channeler won't even know what their baseline thoughts of something are until they start channeling, and they're always maybe referencing something in a certain way, or they have a certain thought process. Like, for example, if Earth is the center of everything, everything you channel is going to come through with that perspective. It may not be right at all. In fact, we say it's not right at all. Humans aren't meant to save everything. It's not the way this is meant to be. But if you grew up with that perception of that's how it works, then you bring through the information and it goes through that filter.
The bias filter, yeah.
It will go through that filter. And so
you have to do this with unbiased vision is what you have to do.
You strive to realize what your biases are so that you can let that go to be more unbiased. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the key is. And I think some people don't understand when you even use the word bias, what is that? Well, bias could be, a certain religion thought process that is a paramount part of your life, and you're going to bring things through in a manner through that filter. It could be your particular current thought processes on do you believe aliens are real or not real. So if you don't believe aliens are real, then you're never going to bring through potentially an alien. It will always be a human. It's always going to, because your thought is that way. So again, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, just trying to help people understand how the process works. A channeler should be learning and growing as they go.
And also some beings might be biased towards their own. Case in point, I was seeing one time somebody do a channeling where someone asked them about Sasquatch, and the beings that happened to be around were actually the enemies of the forest people. And what ended up taking place is these beings said I believe the quote was, the giants of the earth are nearly gone, or something to that effect. What that was, we were the forest people's enemies, basically imprinting on people like, oh, they're nearly gone, or because they wanted them that way. So that was the bias of those particular, negative beings, trying to imprint that on the channeler, who thought that they were actually talking to benevolence. They got they got used to a particular energy wavelength, and not having anything other wavelength or frequency to judge it off of, thought they were always dealing with benevolence because they asked them if they were benevolent. I saw this trick many times. You say, ask them if they're benevolent 3 times, and if they say 3 times they're good. Wrong. Also, if you see a heart space, a visual heart space, oh, yeah, no, that's incorrect now, because we do the true benevolence with no conflicting agendas. We run them through the ringer, and we run ourselves through the ringer to see what we're actually perceiving. But case in point, there were some friends of ours that left a house one time to go somewhere for a few weeks and come back. And one of them said to me, man, we really left it. We left a cottage, and they went back to it, and they said, man, the energy was there. It was horrible. How did I live in that? It's because you acclimated. And some of these channelers have acclimated to beings that they are around, not discerning whether they're good or bad, because they are under the biased assumption that what was around them was always benevolent and good, and had good intentions. I had to, over the years, really, really hunker down and look at if there were any such biases. And there were. So I had to shed myself of those, or as the best I could. And then I saw the truth for what it was. It wasn't biased anymore. It wasn't this big, say, mystical experience. It was more just circles of communication. And that's really all that was.
And that process continues. So again, no one is going to reach a pinnacle in this lifetime that they have reached that pinnacle of never being subjective to, of never having a deception, of never, there is going to be a constant learning and growing, and you can get, I think, pretty darn good with it and be, really discerning on who you're going to, decide to trust and not trust. But again, I think if I could break down a misconception, and I would want to break down the misconception that channelers are perfect, because they're not, that there's some guarantee somehow that they're speaking to something that's only benevolent, because it's not true. And the fact that, again, grow in your abilities and understand that you should be able to look back 10 years and say, wow, look at how much I've grown as a channeler. And you just do the best you can, like anyone else in any other, profession that is out there. So this is kind of really important, because the other thing that can happen is that if a channeler feels pressured to that sort of perfection, they may have a tendency to lie, meaning to protect the information that they put out at all cost, in fear of the embarrassment and or ridicule of not getting it right. I would like to see that shed away, because it is not really realistic that it's going to be all perfection. And so the goal is, if you are listening to someone, that your job is to not take any information carte blanche. Your job is to bring in, listen. If you definitely know it's like over your head, let it go in peace. Whatever pieces of information come your way, mull it around, and decide, does this feel truthful, and have the desire and the expectation that more information will come your way to either say, no, I'm gravitating even more to this belief system, or I think I'm going to put it aside and wait and see what other information that I can find. And so that's really important. I think, again, the other thing is, we were asked to look at something, and instead of just coming up with a snap answer, it has taken us 10 days to
from the time this recording is about 10 days.
10 days to really look at something, to really, from our initial feelings, what was going on, to sitting back, to looking at things a little bit more, to having conversations with different folks, to really come up with, I think, to be able to answer the original question that we were asked. So again, you do not have to make these snap decisions on a right or a wrong or anything like that. Sometimes it takes time, and you should take time to process what's being asked and processed, and take a good look at it before you decide to really be able to comment on something. And that's okay. Again, another barrier I would wish to break down at times, which are unrealistic expectations of people, and that sometimes time is needed, and it should be, allotted. So do not be ashamed. You're not a failure if you're growing. And again, we've changed our tunes. We mean it. We want benevolence in with no conflicting agenda. That no conflicting agenda is a huge part of that statement. So what is your intention? What you have to do is, instead of saying there's an assumption to an intention, that's not the way it works out there. It's like, you need to think contractual now, because that's more of how things work. And you better be very specific as far as what you're expecting. You better not make any assumption. You better be very, very, explicit about the expectations of whom you're talking to, the type of information that's coming through. And as a channeler, you should put out the expectation that you will grow through any biases you have that are keeping you from encoding and decoding information correctly. Grow. And so all of that is okay. And, just let go of criticism that expects a perfection that can't be there now in humankind.
Yeah, and also I've encountered this, and I always encountered this other one, where people, and I've seen this in both sessions and other lectures and things of that nature, where people, they believe a particular being implicitly. I can see if there's a trust and a communication and a camaraderie being built there, a bridge and a unity being built. Different story, an organic unity, and you're getting information that way, and you're setting yourself aside to be able to get that information as best to your ability. But if you won't remove yourself from the older, what was considered to be tried and true, the older biases like the dogmatic religions, things of that nature, if you're basically saying, oh, these people would do me no harm, I just cannot be disrespectful. I got to go to them for my information. Okay, to each his own, but on the flip side of it, just know you have a bias in place. Academia also suffers from this because they won't acknowledge any of the other areas, such as paranormal, such as the mystical, such as the ancient alien theory. All of these things, aliens, all of it, because it's a belief that is in place that is blocking that of actual unbiased vision. Therefore, the proper information, or the information, will always be skewed towards that particular bias. And I've seen people, sometimes in sessions, people will call on a particular being, and I always ask, and I still ask this: please do not do that, because not only are you not driving your own ship or your own vehicle. Yes, Isaac, the Jesus take the wheel metaphor, I understand. But you understand, of course, he couldn't go an entire hour without punning. But anyway, what I'm saying is, if you are letting something else sit in the driver's seat, you're not getting a being that is for your highest good and highest vibrations. Now, if you are coexisting with a being to bring through benevolent information, like we do with the forest people and Isaac, Elena bested them, all of them. Then if there isn't one expecting the driver's seat each time, like, oh, give me the wheel kind of thing, not that one's good. The other one is not. There is a major difference, and also if you're lending completely your energies to something, not cool. You're giving your power away. And I know that argument has been around since we've had religions put in place. It's been around and will probably always be around. As long as it's the it's the counteraction to the worship. So the force people will be the first to tell you that worship is not good. And nor would they allow anyone to do that to them. They don't like it. I'm using them as an example because one of them is going to speak on the show. But they feel that's all right. So this is where I'm at with this. And yes, I get, and Joanna will attest, I get very frustrated with different groups of people because of the fact that sometimes, when people are born into this, and not actually, ironically, they have the come to Jesus moment later on, and later on, or wake up, I should say, which both the idioms are actually incorrect, believe it or not. Wake and disawake, or come to Jesus, are both inaccurate and incorrect, just like Christ consciousness is. But at the same time, I actually get frustrated with people because they're constantly in the fork and light socket moment. And I personally find it frustrating. I found it very frustrating during COVID, and I know I'm not alone on that one, during the lockdowns and everything. And I find it frustrating, again, when I see other seers still clinging to the thing that I once clung to. So, yes, I know, Isaac, there's no word, such word as clanging. Okay, in that sense. Anyway, he's not talking today, by the way. Except for that. But at any rate, he's being annoying in the background, going, but here. Anyway, trying to get me to screw up. But the point is, in these situations, I'm seeing like some people that are, yes, there's a difference between going day to day and then going into what the not the new age, but the metaphysical and the disclosure crowds call normies, the ones that won't do anything. You'll notice that if you go into like the disclosure communities and everything, you're going to hear this terminology quite a bit. And some people might or sheep or something like that. And you're going to some people find that very derogatory. Some people on Facebook find it extremely derogatory or bigoted in a certain way. Some people have mentioned this, and I've seen this on social media quite a bit. The point is, or muggle or something like that, and I've seen this quite a bit. The point I'm making is, it is extremely difficult to escape that bias, especially if you have been born into having a certain ability set and you're already the light bulbs turned on when you come in. It's incredibly difficult not to look at that at some of those groups of people without scorn and without some kind of prejudice in place. And I realize that is a bias, but I have already been scolded over this very thing on multiple occasions from being out there, forest people included. So but there are certain feelings you still have to honor, certain things about yourself you still have to honor. And if somebody screws up and then we end up paying for it, I energetically and physically, like again, we'll go with the lockdowns, prime example. I got very, 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 very frustrated and pretty much borderline hateful over that because all that energy was coming our way. It was a very, very trying moment, and I use that as an example because it was in our recent history. But with you, this is why I never want to see something like that happen again. Not the fact that it's just me paying for it, but it's a lot of people paying for it. And the awake community will say, why should we have to pay for your guys' mistakes? We already know better. Granted, there's ego in there, but also at the same time, that's the mentality. That's what's going on currently, folks, right there. But at the end of the day, that is actually seeing that dichotomy is no different than what I just described with what our material was from the beginning to current. We didn't know, we know. But there's there's also a big difference between that and the feelings that I have felt towards some of the normie community, because they can get very controlled. But at the same time, the frustration is something I own. If this makes sense to people, it's now from the see that as a starting point to doing what we said from the shows in the beginning to the current. How does this correlate to channeling? This correlates really big to channeling because this still counts as a bias. And also the presumption that there is awake and unawake still counts as a bias. And Levick, the Anakam warrior, brought this up to me quite some time ago. He said there is no such thing as awake and unawake, or awake and asleep. It is basically where everybody is in their lanes and where they happen to be. And yes, that then presents itself or manifests as an illusionary value of asleep and awake. We are perceiving it that way because or intelligent and stupid. Yes, there are stupid people. I've seen plenty of them. Are there intelligent people more knowledgeable? Yes, I've seen plenty of them. But is it a factor of awake and unawake? No. It's a factor of lanes. I just don't like it when a drunk driver from one lane cranes into another. Let's just put it that way. That's where I'm personally at. But I may not feel that way after a while. But many people in the disclosure community will sympathize from from the statements I just made. But that is also a bias towards the very thing you're trying to change. By declaring something or a group of people dumb, you are actually continuing their dumb cycle, if this actually makes sense. It is more of a co-creative effort being aimed at one side, then they are bouncing it back and manifesting as that dumb that you are actually manifesting towards you, coming towards you, if this makes sense. That's not always true, but it is at least 3/4 true. So, Joanna?
No, and I think it's again a point of saying that no human is going to be perfect in all of this, and thus this is an area of growth. You know, this is an area of recognition and growth, no different than the expectation is for those people that are considered stupid or whatever, that they have room for growth. Everyone has room for growth here. So, you know, to say that it's not frustrating, you don't want to roll your eyes, oh my God, not again, can't we not get past this? Of course you're going to feel that way. That's normal. The point is, again, when you talk about all of the, feelings and different things, are you getting stuck? And is being in that place really now driving all of your thought processes of how you perceive the world? And so this area of looking at whatever muggle, you call them muggles, normies, whatever. If you are now constantly every day, this is how you see it, and you're actually talking about the world that way, you now are stuck. And so you have to understand that human growth is going to happen everywhere. And, just like you would want to be welcomed if you finally grew to a place where you felt like, boy, I didn't know what was up, but I know better now. And you were speaking to people that were there, that you would want them to accept you. By God, you should then be able to accept those that are growing and learning from this. Not everyone will, and we've said that plenty of times. There are going to be people that will not grow anymore, and they will leave this world with their previous perceptions in place. And there's nothing you're going to be able to do, but it was never your job to do anything.
Yes, this is a very important perception. Not only people not born into it wouldn't get certain things, even if they woke up later, and then sometimes the already awakened ones will scorn them. But it is essentially, oh my God, that got wiped from my head. Give me 2 seconds. Yes. Okay. The people that are in the community are under this misguided perception that somehow there's going to be this great awakening, and all the normies, muggles, and stupid people are going to bow their heads in shame that they ever doubted those that were awake. That is probably one of the biggest bits of egotism that I have ever heard in my life. Even though ego is survival instinct, when it gets to the point where, we're better than you kind of thing, you don't know how many memes I have seen over the years with the metaphysical community, New Age community saying, okay, now it's our job to go wake people up. No, it really is not. But to inform, yes. Have you come in with a purpose to inform within your particular lane? Your particular soul has come in to do a particular thing, but that is true of literally every person. So it is not your group's job to police the universe, pretty much, or police the planet, but and I will switch slight gears. Should there be some gatekeeping and some vetting involved in the community itself? You are correct. Tighter circle, deeper roots. I totally agree. And then if you can't mesh with certain people that are causing you stress, that's a splitting of the densities. Absolutely so. And that's the timeline splitting for people, and they just go their separate ways. But what I'm trying to say is, if you believe it's your job to go wake people up, that is a form of evangelicalism. That's a form of, just like, those Jehovah's Witnesses that drive through your neighborhood every now and again and come to your front door and asking you if you found Jesus. That is what that is. And if you find that annoying, that is what you're doing to other people.
And it's interesting because, again, these thought processes aren't new, and stirring the pot to divide and conquer, to keep people, that division happening, to keep them from being able to find any common ground, is a strategy employed by the darkness. It is tried and true. It's been done for hundreds of centuries. And why are they going to give it up now? So you must even see that. Now, Does it mean, as we say, that you have to hang out with everybody? Of course not. But you don't have to do things like that. But again, try to recognize that in your lifetime, you will constantly be learning and growing. If you can just accept that, and then with the intention of, I just want to be able to see things more clearly. I just want to recognize some of my own biases. I want my foundation to be strong. So if I need to let things go, I need to let them go. If you go out there now with that intention for yourself, and many people don't, you need to start looking at life a little bit like that, because again, it's your foundation that you're talking about. My foundation is what I talk about for me. And that's what we do so that we can be more of truly the genuine, authentic selves that we are, so that we may bring those energies to the table. And it will be those energies that do help to more unite us again with commonalities that we have, and that we are able to just go in peace with the other ones. And that's going to be huge over this time, especially for anyone that's been alive for the last 20 years, because so much effort has been put into divide and conquer. You either totally agree with me or you're out. And so life, you're not going to find a lot of people that are totally in agreement with you. So I've seen over my lifetime how things have changed to this dichotomy of that. It needs to dissolve, and people need to be able to, come together. But again, this whole conversation started out with channelers. They do learn and grow. They always will. And people just need to understand that. And, as I've said, just kind of be able to be at grace with that growth, be at grace with yourself as you're growing, and then be at grace with others if they're growing as well. And so, hopefully with that, maybe this is a good time to bring someone in.
Mm-hmm. And I know in people of our circles, I know, and I've seen this on Facebook a number of times, there is a phrase that has been floating around social media for some time: normie's gonna norm, meaning that they're just going to do their thing regardless of what you actually tell them. But also, it was meant also to start in a more derogatory way. I gave you the passive way of it. But I'm just saying, this is literally that, not necessarily that community, but that is the level of frustration people that have come in with certain skills have towards with those that it's dormant in. And it's like X-Man versus a regular human kind of thing. That's how it's viewed. And also channeling is viewed kind of this way as well, where it's kind of a niche community, but then you start to drift into maybe where you've improved area in one way, and then sometimes that other group doesn't necessarily think you're on the up and up. They might even think you're dark. And once you get into a faster moving vibration, others don't recognize it. It feels alien to them. So I've run across this multiple times. I've walked past people in the store just looking, going, "What's this?" This is because of the vibration you're putting off as you're going around people that haven't hit that yet. And it's either they're spooked by it or they're just inquisitive. So I'll leave that here. And I got to look at the name of the person. Okay. Okay. And I know people are probably wondering why this isn't a World of Sasquatch. It's just a Sasquatch talking. I will make this episode available on the World of Sasquatch's Rumble, along with the Lifting's Rumble and the YouTube. It'll be anything that a Sasquatch speaks on will end up on their channel, regardless of what show it is. So if it's a forest person speaking. Okay. His name is Glegan. I believe he was from Arizona. So around the Sedona area. Because the person I spoke to lived in Chandler. So this forest person was around Sedona. 85 years of age. And there was another tribal leader by the name of Megros. And we talked about Sufas being a tribal leader. We've encountered with Fuma Simar and Mirnak and Morak and all of them. So they know each other. And also we've talked to Kiyosa, which on GSC before. So being an ambassador to the forest people. So, and hopefully they come back in again to really hash it out on that show. But Gleegan is the name of it. I had to look at that name a few times. Gleegan. And it seems we're getting younger and younger ones. The last one was 150. He's 85. So, eventually we're going to come around to having like 20 and 30-year-old ones, I guess. Um, all right. Gleegan, I gotta make sure you're here first. Gleegan, you were here a moment ago. Okay. Benevolent Gleegan only. Benevolent forest people. I know you're here as I feel that on the forehead. All right. Feel the thumb right there. That's them. So, okay. Did I get that off my solar plexus there? Okay. There we go. Gleegan, you can just see the foot. I know you're new, and several of your friends were here earlier. In fact, you were the ones that were pointing out something to me about this very subject. So I'm actually understating that, what I just said. So, so, yes, this is Gleegan. I wished to initiate contact in this way. I have not done this form of channeling before, but in order to maintain a channel unbiasedness in this way, especially with our community that are very psionically sensitive. What am I trying to say? A yin and yang in that respect of, how may I put this? Saying one thing and doing another cannot be done. Or in another respect, saying and doing one thing that is true, but also in your questioning of events, finding the, how can I put this lightly? Finding the unbalancedness of judgment of others. Yes, we recognize that judgment of others in situations is a natural tendency of people. But in an organic unity, yes, you have your tighter circle, deeper roots. Absolutely so. That is celebrated. But also, what is equally celebrated is that of organic unity. Yes, we ourselves are frustrated with other beings that might attend conferences and might be around you talking on a regular basis, or newbies that are coming in. Even people that disrupt our environment do offend us quite often. They do things sometimes willfully so, like those that are maybe howling in the woods for no reason. Then you have others that leave garbage. Then you have others that outright wish to show us harm, like with guns. Those, yes, that of course you would defend against. But those that are just going through their lives and you jam something down their throat, like information about us, no, this is unacceptable. The evangelizing, as he put it, perfect word for this, but it doesn't mean that we are doing this. What we are doing is informing. You put the information out there, and it is others' right to judge it as they see fit, or believe it or not believe it. The right people will find this information. And before you condemn what I say as right people, meaning those are of conducive energetics and vibratory frequency values, such as tighter circle, deeper roots, or true benevolence within no conflicting agendas, as of this moment in time, as he likes to say and you like to say. So this is exactly what I wanted to say so I can answer questions.
So how did you gain the interest at only 85 to want to start channeling?
Oh, there are technically I would be still an adult, but more of a younger adult. In human vernacular, you would see me as more of a 20-year-old, maybe 25. In our years, since the years are more spread out in longevity. No offense to humans with the stunted age syndrome, let's just say. Not your fault completely. It's your toxins and your and groups genetically altering you. Enlil was guilty of this thousands of years ago, but and then Enki fixed it supposedly. But with this, how did I get started? It was more of a curiosity. I don't really have a ranking in that way. I just went around and wanted to try to communicate. This was for the past actually 20 years or so, 20, 25 years. But then the rest of my people that I encountered said that this had to be done slowly. I had to assess who I was to speak to. I had to find those not only with open hearts, but those that could encode and decode our presence properly and relay our messages with crystal clarity, barring any interference. So you could say, yes, Isaac, I have a trainee tag on my fur or hair. Yes. So that is actually kind of true, regardless of his joke. Technically, that is what I'm doing.
Isn't it? So I'm actually glad you just said that because I think that is honestly how I feel about human channelers. It's a trainee. You're doing the best that you can, but there's always going to be time that you're going to have to grow and learn and, discern and figure out how to make it all work on your own biases. Then that's exactly what you're saying that you've had to do.
Yes, my people have had also bias against your own people as well. There was a lot of trust broken there by those that you would see as either normies, muggles, or stupid people. And yes, they were very harmful, and the ones we are still against to this day are just plain evil. Of course, we're not going to communicate with that. But we look for those that are at least close to that information to be able to communicate and form a unity there and a continuous of the communications that way. But do we completely condemn those on both sides that have committed acts of evil over the past couple of centuries? Yes. Yes, we do. Some of our own people are guilty of this because of this very same argument. These stupid people, how dare they? This was also on our end. We've experienced this, and some of our own people still don't want to interact with humans. But the moot, or that you come to call it, voted that we do, that we continue our communications because it was worth it. Like you see in your Aquaman 2 movie, where he's trying to get the Mer to interact with the surface world. It's like, no, they're stupid. We want to conquer them. There was a reason we went with Orm. The same difference. We felt at times the same way. Some of the Mer people also still feel this way. That even some of them consider humans to be sub-intelligent. This, not all of them, just small groups of them that are not aligned with some of the other bigger ones. But there it is. Just like some of your militias out there consider to are prepared to deal with your government at the time would come. There are those of the Mer and even some forest people groups that are hunkered down in places too. And if people come across them, that they get yelled at. So then people judge the entirety of our groups that way, and then here comes the volley and fighting back and forth again. We had a strong alliance a long time ago, and it can be again. It's just that there has to be a little faith there. There has to be communications, and there cannot be saber rattling from either side.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I would say, obviously, for humanity as well. And it's very, very, very difficult. It's the one thing that I think that, for the last 6 or 7 months, Chris and I have spoken about how it's harder than we thought to build an organic unity. Part of it is because, at least for humanity, again, what I was just saying before you started speaking, of how many years has it seemed to be this just mission to let people know that that's unacceptable. In the political arena, you see it very clearly. It's either one way or the other. And this.
Red and blue, yes.
Right, the compromise isn't there. None of this is there. And I think.
Or bipartisan, yes.
Right. And so I think that, again, if you did not grow up to see anything different than that, you think this is normal, which this isn't how humans actually, really want to move forward in the future. But those who have an agenda would want it to continue because it benefits them. So it's very, very hard. And you do have to still spend time exploring yourself to see, where am I tripping up in all of this? And again, I just say I appreciate what you were saying about yourself and your own personal training, because again, it's really no different. So right now for yourself, what do you actually, besides reaching out as a communicator, is that what your role is now within your group, to try and do that, or do you have other job duties?
Yeah, it's more or less, the reason we use the word trainee is that's what you would understand what I'm doing. It's more or less learning from not only your situations as a communicator, but your situations within your own biases as well, what you are attempting to struggle through. I mean, not that we're trying to study you, that's not necessarily true. It kind of is in matters of communications. There's other groups that are far more harsh in that way. Your Tibetans, for instance, will data mine and probe for where you are specifically so they can mimic that. We don't do that. Or he likes to say, "Homie, don't play that." That is exactly where I personally am. I do not mimic that. I will show myself as I am, because that is how the communications begin. Your Ligurians, for instance, and Trogdaboogan were actually showing themselves as archangels. Not a smart move. And some humans assumed we were angelic, so therefore we had some higher standing with Yeshua and all this other stuff. No, 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 no. We are like you, just in a different frequency, and you all also have a bit to learn about even stories such as this, whereas it's either all one thing or another. And yes, there's good and evil. Yes, you are good trying to fight evil actions. Yes, but it doesn't mean you're not made up of both. No, and we are the same as you in this respect. We are your cousins. So, with that said, what I do is I was originally one of those, they chose me for this because I was one of those adolescents at one point that refused to work around humans. I was one of these that would not speak, would not bother. I was fine with how we had things. And it's fine, it's tighter circle, deeper roots, but at the same time, you still have to work around others and as the world changes. Let's say the whole as the world turns sort of thing. So this is where I'm at.
I will find that a funny statement because, if I've grown through my years, it's like all the things I wanted to avoid and not be a part of, I ended up being a part of anyway. It's like some part of me, you know what I mean, was almost hesitant to be a part of what my apparent path was going to be anyway. I think a lot of people can reflect on that and say they are initially turned off by what they end up actually being a part of. It's like, no, I don't want to do it. But
wanting to go off on this grand adventure and then you're stuck being a desk clerk.
Exactly. So, well, that's really interesting. So I'm just going to open the floor. What else that we haven't spoken about regarding the subject do you want to bring up?
Yes, we understand and sympathize with this. The forest people, even though you had just met me, there's usually a design to this madness. Even though this came through in a session, this was more directed at you guys. I was at that stage once, so therefore they felt the forest people community felt it necessary to push me forward, knowing full well I had just left that particular type of bias or status. So this is why they are inchworming their way to younger ones that sometimes some of them still exist in that. There was also others. There was one you encountered you called JoJo in Arizona that I can honestly say he's kind of a brat, but he's part of our clan, actually. So, yes, I know of whom you speak, and he's a dick. I'm just saying he's an adolescent, and as teenagers are, they sometimes do not understand certain things, but at the same time, they love nature's environment. They see humans are messing with nature. Therefore, it's like that Harry and the Hendersons thing where he sees his forest in the series, that is, had been torn down. And it was more of an activism sort of thing. So they think they can act with their psionic abilities to mess with the people they think are destroying the environment, which they think a lot of humans are. Kind of like, other races, they think it's more of a virus type situation with people that they knew were the descendants of colonists that came from the outside, as we did. But they also are upholding some of the old rules where humans agreed to certain conditions of the planet that they have forgotten. They have forgotten certain things, but so have some of our people. And this is why some of the elders were exterminated a while back, because the bad guys out there wanted our people to also forget those things and continue the fighting. And yes, there were skirmishes and have been skirmishes back and forth for a few thousand years here and there with Dogman as well. And we've since began to bury the hatchet, not in each other's heads, but with the Dogmen. Uh, some of them, yeah, they are dickheads. I will attest. They also have a huge bias in place in this area. There's a real hatred there sometimes towards humans because humans hurt them. Military has hurt them. Soldiers have hurt them. The forest people, it's the same way. Therefore, some of the young people strike out and lash out, but it ends up making it worse for all groups. And that we have found a consensus with them, a common unity, at least for some of the ones that aren't retarded. So, and that's, I should say that's saying, shouldn't say that's saying something, but I'm actually joking about them because I know some of them can hear me in the background. I'm just saying when they're mentioned, they actually can hear you. Same with us. But I'm trying to say that I was actually, you could say I was elected by your friends back in Arizona to come forth because I have pretty much just left that mentality towards mankind and towards humans. And so therefore I was like basically fresh off the boat, as Isaac keeps saying. So with that said, this is really all I came to say, but with the channeling community, the progression of the channeling community is what your original topic also was. Yes, there are those things that are just getting ready to change. And I'm not saying that's why you guys are here per se. I'm not going to add this into an egocentric conversation of you are the chosen. No, no. If somebody's telling you you are the chosen, slap whoever that is. Whoever that prophet is, whoever that glowing, robe-covered, bearded moron telling you this, I would slap the hell out of them and slap that holographic smile right off the smirk right off their face and see who is behind that light glowing in your face. That said, in your channeling community, in your new age, with new age movement, which was invented by your government, the three-letter agencies in the 90s, I might add, to divide you from your subs. There are some core beliefs that did come from Christianity, but there are some core beliefs that did stick that will then be regurgitated again into something that works better and is conducive to the energies as they are. Not that you are unburdened by what has been, you learn from what has been, like as opposed to. But in your channeling communities, you're going to start to see a shift. You're going to start to see a progression from the heroic more towards the unity and truthful. I mean, not that there isn't truth there. That's the wrong choice of words. There is truth there, a lot of it, but you're going to see less yield or more, less of the yield and more of the truth and more of, and less of dependency on the very beings that they call their spirit guides. There's really no such thing as a spirit guide. There's benevolent soul family. There's spirit folk. Yes, they do guide you, and also beings that are around you at a particular vibration do come in to help you out. and other beings protect you. Yes, you are protected by benevolent soul family, whatnot. This can shift and change with the winds. What I'm trying to say is more of this unity is going to take place, and more of these type of connections are going to be, and less of the dogmatic ones. This is why you're starting to see less and less of that in those communities. This is why he scoffs at this, because of the fact that it's there. He's feeling that it should be further along, which I'm not disagreeing, but it also is what it is. And this is why when you hold a space in a particular vibration and you're the strongest torsion field, it begins to change that environment. So this is where I am currently am.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming in to talk with us.
Yes, I thank you as well. Again, he thought this was just about the session, yes. Which, yes, we're forming a unity for that person as well, forming a communications. But it was your buddies back, Fuma and them back in Arizona, that actually got my attention. And Kiosa and Alam also will send their regards as well. So, if there's nothing else, I will detach then. Thank you and blessings. Thank you. From your trainee personnel. Yes, Isaac, I know yes, not the assistant manager and general manager. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's funny. Yeah, he seems like he would be like somebody in their about in their 20s. That's the age difference. Just like with Elaine and Bessa and Lanya Losians, they're about 60 and they look like they're in their 20s. So it's kind of the same ratio with some of these force people too. Not the really ancient ones that are tens of thousands. I'm talking about current-esque time frame here. Because he was around slightly before World War II. So that's around the time he would have been born. So yeah. Okay. So he's actually backing off now. So do you have anything else before
No,
we take this out?
people found this conversation interesting. I hope they can get a lot from it.
Yes. So yes, thank you for everyone for watching this episode of The Lifting. If you need a session from myself, go to the website you're seeing there in the corner, thelifting.net. Make sure to visit our sister site, galacticintraversalconsortium.com. I have to remember the new name, or for short, gic.show. Make sure to pay a visit to the Rumble channels as well, The World of Sasquatch and The Lifting on Rumble. So thank you, everybody. And I now close this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas as of this moment. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now.